as we talk about it here. But yeah, just something I would allow you to be aware of is the concept of tilt queuing, and this isn't necessarily indicative of tilting. Tilting is definitely a big part of it. That's kind of where the name comes from, but it's essentially just playing when you're on a loss streak, and that's typically not a good idea because when you start to lose, typically you keep losing. So that could be for a number of reasons, from maybe you're just not having a great day, or you're tired, or your gameplay is just not doing great, or even if you feel like you're in a good mood, maybe there's something subconsciously affecting you that you can't even really pinpoint too well, right? Like you're just kind of in the back of your head, you're getting tilted a little bit, you're getting frustrated, that sort of idea. And therefore, my recommendation may be to limit yourself once you start to lose. So, for example, depending on where you feel your mental state is or how well you're playing, you could put like a 2 to 3 game limit on yourself. So if you lose like 2 3 games in a row, then you can just say, okay, I'm all done. I'm gonna take a break, right? Maybe take 30 minutes, go do something else, come back, try again. That sort of idea. Now that's not necessarily, there's other things that you can add in on this, like for example, if you keep on losing after you come back, you might want to just go take a break, from playing for the day, or even like if you want to keep playing the game, then go ahead, play on a different role, play on an alternate account, which can help preserve your main account SR. But the idea behind this is it's tilting your gameplay towards the wins and the neutrals versus going on the longer loss streaks, which just get essentially completely eliminated from your gameplay if you're going along with this, with the exceptions of if you just have over multiple days you're not doing good,
Yeah.
which will happen, of course. But it stops. For example, I've met a lot of people who will go on like 300 SR loss streaks in a single day, right? That, or
Yeah.
200 or something like that. But with this sort of kind of gameplay checks, you really never go over 100 SR in a single loss in a single day, which helps
Yeah.
make it so that you're also not tilting yourself.
Yeah, and just to echo on that, like I
Mm,
think what it is like it's kind of like so you get stuck in a cycle where like if I'm losing but I'm playing the same way, but I'm losing and I'm playing the
mm,
same way. I was having a bunch of losses and then I started watching Lip Sombra. Someone told me
mm,
that he was a really good Sombra, so I watched him and I'm like, oh yeah, like I need to watch my positioning better. So I
yeah,
jumped in after watching him, and next thing you know, I was winning a few games. So I was like,
yeah,
I needed the mental change instead of
mm,
grinding it, 5 games in a row with the same mindset.
yeah.
So I'm taking little notes here. So I wrote if I lose two
Right.
games, I got to take a break and
Mm,
study or
yeah.
study the game or something. Yeah.
And also just monitor your mental, right? Like just where you are, just gameplay wise. Like, are you playing well? Do you feel mentally good? Are you tired? That sort of thing. Because you might lose 2 games and be playing fantastically, and you feel great, and it is just you lost those 2 games just because you had a lever, or your teammates like absolutely were dog water, which will happen.
Yeah.
But if you go 2 games and you're like, oh snap, I just feel absolutely disgusting. I'm just gonna, I'm not even gonna try, right? It's not even something I want to attempt at the moment. So then go and practice or have fun doing, either just go and play casually or practice in something that's not going to affect your main SR, right? Like an
Got it.
alternate account.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Cool. Got it.
Yep. All right. So let's get started and looking at your actual gameplay. See what we can spot here. Okay. I like that we're placing on a health pack. All right.
Adelante. Damage increase.
So, as of the current moment, at the very beginning of the round, you should probably be looking to farm up EMP. So, when it comes to Sombra, and gameplay in general, we'll have to keep our eye on this, and maybe we can go more in depth as we see it come up more. But generally speaking, you just want to be doing stuff constantly. Now, that's, like I said, we can go in depth on what that actually means, but here we could probably be doing stuff instead of just sitting around. And a very easy thing we could be doing here is, rather than just kind of sitting here and wait for the fight to progress more and more and more, we should have placed TP earlier, right? And then run all the way up to their spawn so that when the doors unlock, we can sit on the side, just shoot into them, farm up some EMP, and then translocate away. This means that by the time the cart's like here, we've already gotten 20% on our ultimate, and then we can therefore get a jump start. If you're farming EMP effectively, a lot of times you can charge it at a really fast pacing, which means you get more ultimates in EMP. Obviously, is an insanely powerful ultimate in the game. So charging as many as possible is going to be something you want to do here.
I think that's tough in lower ranks though too, because I feel sometimes like, I use my comms. You're not going to see that in the replay, but I'm using comms a lot too.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I hear your point. Okay.
Yep. So here it's just farm as they're coming out rather than sitting around. Even right now could be farming. Okay. Oh, nice. I like the tracking. Tracking looks good.
Initiating the hack.
Okay. Good character to hack. Right.
¿Qué onda?
Okay. Nice hack.
See you later. Much better.
All right.
Ahorita regreso.
Sombra games, I guess.
Here I am.
Okay. I like the targets that we're selecting for hacking. That is good. All right.
I like this position here because they have to focus forward. You get a lot of free farm.
Yes, I definitely like that we're taking the high ground. So we might have to discuss something in a moment here.
Feeling much better.
But I'm keeping my eye on it.
Gotcha. Apagando las luces.
All right, so let's take a look at this fight. Possibly like right as you're maybe like the second before you decloak, toss like a translocator, so we have kind of a get out of jail free card here if they start focusing us. But besides that, yes, I think that's a. All right, maybe. Okay, so Hog's all the way there, so we're good. I think that's a good EMP. Got everyone in it. All right.
Can I
Sorry.
ask you what were you looking at when to
Yeah,
get that? Yeah.
I'm just right here. I was looking at because I couldn't from this perspective. It looked like Hog was maybe in the fight, and in that case, I'm thinking that this fight might have possibly already been won. But then I just analyzed the situation a bit more, and I saw that it was even player wise. So I was just looking to check if this EMP was a necessity or not. If we needed to use it, and definitely yes, this is a fantastic EMP to correct myself. I was just kind of analyzing the situation a little bit. So yes, good EMP. You were very even in the fight, and you got a lot of people in it.
Heroes never.
Though, note immediately afterwards we do die, which is why I was stating possibly we could have, we could have done a number of things here. We could have, as we're running in, place translocator here, toss it in the room, toss it just throw it up on a high
Off like
ground.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, just get it somewhere. That way, as soon as we're EMPing, we have that way to escape. Whereas here we just don't have that as an option, and then we EMP, and then Reinhardt swings on us, and then we just die, melt instantly, right? So, very preventable death if we just have a translocator
I'm
somewhere.
out of here. ¿Qué onda? I could use some assistance.
I do feel a lot of pressure to use EMP frequently because I feel like if I hold on to it too long, then I could hold on. Like I could have built another one.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel that.
Yeah. 100% you want to use it frequently. And when it comes to ultimates, ults that aren't used don't get any value. But at the same time, there are also situations where holding on to your ultimate is or like you should be holding on to your ultimate. Like if you've already won the fight, for example, or if you already lost the fight. Usually you're not going to want to ult in between fights, right? So if you've won, then it's just overkill. If you've lost, then it's not going to change the fact that you lost.
Miss me?
Yeah, I think sometimes I have a hard time keeping track of where the fight's at. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll mess it up. But then I usually realize it. Like
Yeah.
oh shit. Okay.
Would you like to discuss, because we haven't come across a situation like that yet, would you like to pre-go over that and just review how to tell whether or not you've won and lost the fight more
We do it maybe
effectively?
after.
Sure. We can look for a
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, we'll keep going here.
Yep.
I'm hoping that you'll start to notice things that I habitually do wrong.
Yeah. 100%. That's the objective here.
Yeah.
All right. So, generally speaking, we're at 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to review real quick your preference ranging on Sombra and how that interacts with high ground usage. So on Sombra, right, you've probably already, because you have a lot of experience on the character, but Sombra is a very close ranged character, maybe a little bit
widespread,
close to
yeah.
medium. I think that in a lot of situations here we're playing are a little bit outside of our preference range. So preference meaning that it's just where you prefer to be because you're going to be the most effective at that range. You're going to be able to do the most from that range. That's not to say that you can never be further or never be closer, but it's just to say that that's where you want to be as often as possible. And I think a couple situations we're not necessarily I guess stepping into it when we could. So let's just discuss it real quick, right? Preference range, multiple reasons why you want to get closer. Sombra is like kind of a close to medium range character, kind of in the middle there, because Sombra has spread. So that means that she has a lot of tiny little pellets, and when you're far away, a lot of those end up missing, and then you don't do a lot of very effective damage. Additionally, you have fall off damage, so the further away you are, the less damage you do, right? That can be seen, we shred them up here, and then we back up to, 20 meters, and it takes us, probably, it takes us a little bit longer. You come back to here, it's like, it's even more apparent all the way back here, right, where you're doing pretty much absolutely nothing, right? And you're additionally, nothing to note is that it's also going to be harder to track people the further away you get. It's a smaller target. Smaller targets are harder to hit, so that's going to be harder to hit than this when they're right here, right? So hitting less headshots, hitting less shots in general, further away, less damage, right? So Sombra wants to be closer. So what your preference range is, I would say you're probably going to want to cap at around 20. Right? This is like the range which you want to cap, but you're still even at this range. You're still not shredding them really fast. Now, this is easy because it's a standing still bot, but this is going to become very much more apparent even when they're moving around. So they're going to be a much harder target to hit. You're going to be missing more shots. And you also are still probably experiencing fall off at this range. I'm actually not sure exactly where the exact number where Summer's fall off starts, but I believe that it starts around 20. By 20 meters, I think fall off is already implemented. So back here, is maybe the cap at it, but you still probably prefer to stay within this more 10-meter ranging, because up at this 10-meter ranging, this means that you can melt people a lot easier and shred them faster. Back here as well, you're outside of hack range, so you're not going to be able to hack people up until 15 meters. So again, right, 20 meters is kind of that cap of your range. 10 meters is more so the preference of your range, right? Certain characters you can get a little bit closer, but you do have to be careful because certain characters also have like stuns and whatnot, so you want to stay out of range of those. But yeah, in a lot of cases, I end up noticing that we're a little bit outside of that 10-meter range when we could be stepping closer. We're maybe edging more towards the the 20, 25-meter ranging on our kit, right? So for example, like there'll be a Baptiste who's like kind of all the way down there, so we're more so and we're like all the way up here, right? So we just end up being really far away from the character. So it's really going to depend on the situation. But for example, right, in that last game where we're coming in, we're dueling the Ana, the Baptiste. High ground is fantastic. I like that you're taking high ground, but when it comes to knowing when do you stay on high ground or when do you drop from high ground, ranging is going to have a little bit of impact on that, because if, for example, if we're like right above somebody, then they're definitely within that preference range. This is within 10 meters of somebody, right? So if there's a bot who comes and swoops in and they're right here, that's a preference range, 100%. Stay up on high ground. But if you have a translocator you can just instantly get back with, and Baptiste is all the way over here, then you might want to consider just dropping and getting closer to Baptiste so you can melt him faster and do more damage effectively to him.
I'm out of here.
And then that gets you the kill faster. You can just always translocate back to high ground. It just overall is going to be more effective.
I need this level.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess in that situation, what I'm thinking is that if I
Ay,
go down
pobrecito.
there, I'm gonna have to teleport out really quick, and I don't know if I'll be able to kill somebody in that range with those people down there. I mean, obviously this
Yep.
Ana, she's kind of by herself in the back. I was noticing that, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I'm just hanging on to that high ground a little too
Yeah.
long.
It's
Just trying to farm it.
It's definitely going to depend on the situation, right? Like if you're dropping into 6 people, maybe don't do that. But if you're dropping into, a Baptiste and an Ana, and you're keeping a little bit of a distance, really your only threat, right? Unless you just want to be aware of their teammates and whatnot if they're turning around. But your only threat in that situation is just sleep, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And sleep you can dodge and you can
Okay.
translocate away, right? If you see it's about to hit you.
Yeah.
So in that situation, dropping in would just be more effective damage-wise. And then also I saw that like a lot when we were farming up the high ground, rather than maybe sitting when they're kind of walking into the fight, rather than maybe sitting up on that high ground, dropping and getting behind them, right, might be
Yeah.
more effective
I,
to. Yeah.
I started understanding that when you was like, oh yeah, okay. I could have just had the translocator up there, so that way when I'm farming them out of spawn, looking for a healer pick or something, and it gets hairy, I could just teleport back to the
Yeah.
first position. Yeah.
And then if you don't have the time to rotate, then high ground would be a perfectly reasonable second option there. So it's really, like I said, high ground's still wonderfully fantastic positioning, right? But it's just kind of knowing when to use it, and sometimes if it's putting you outside, oh,
Welcome
that's
to
the
the
wrong map.
outing.
And then sometimes if it's putting you outside of your effective range, then you might want to get
Traveling
closer.
will
But
arrive.
again, that's depending on the situation. Maybe you're looking for a hack, maybe
Ready
and
for
that's your
battle.
main priority. Maybe the high ground is in a great spot to farm them from, right, and to do damage. But I'd say in a couple situations here we're maybe sitting outside of our preference range. So here, for example, right, we're up on the high ground. And these guys are like, maybe if they're directly below us here, that's fine. But then they start walking a little bit away from us. So now Baptiste is definitely on outside of our preference range. That's not 10 meters. This is more like 20-ish, right? It's kind of like at that max range that we want to be at. So getting closer to him is going to allow us to do more effective damage. Notice how we're missing a lot of shots. There's a lot of spread, doing less damage in total. And then you just look at the teammates as well here. Is there really a threat to be dropping if nobody's looking at you? Ana's not even paying attention. It's just Baptiste, right? And you have Translocator as an option to get back to the fight with, right? So it's just looking at the
Yeah.
situation like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I definitely think that if we keep going here, you'll see
Yeah.
more glaring errors. But I see your point. Yeah, like especially there.
All right.
Much better.
Might want to cancel TP, right? If you see it's kind of in the middle of nowhere there. Yeah, there you
Be
go.
right back. Hey there.
Here,
Okay.
well, I'm thinking in my mind just watching this. I'm like, that's scary.
um
Be right back.
if you were right now, I think we probably want to be. So here we were thinking, okay, is our team gonna get a recontest? I'd say that it's likely we do not get a recontest here, right? I don't think our team's gonna be able to touch fully. So we're maybe thinking two things in our head right now that we should be doing, right? One, setting up for next fight, right? Getting in a position to be set up for next fight, and then two, farming EMP while we're in between fights, right? Because that's a wonderful time to be farming EMP because there's, what else are you going to do if you're already set up, right? So those are kind of the two things that should be going through our head. I would probably set up first and farm second, or alternatively here, if you feel like you're safe, then you can farm TP out and then set up and then go back in, right? So really, you could do it either or, as long as you feel like you have a safe TP out. Um, so in this situation, firstly, let's discuss like where do you think maybe you should be setting up for next fight? And I guess do you really I guess you get what I mean by setting up for next fight? What would setting up look like?
Like I would probably put my translocator over in that left room with the small health pack, throw it there, and then come back and see if I can farm. But at least when I teleport back, I'd be
Over here?
in a better position with my team. No, to more to the right.
So right,
Because they're gonna cap.
so right over here.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
throw it there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you're looking to set up for the next fight. Come place translocate over here. Yeah, I think that that's reasonable. That might even be a little bit close to them if you're trying to go for that. So in this situation, maybe even looking to here, maybe we could do something like this where we throw translocator out, farm a bit, TP out, and then we could even like do a wraparound and like go up to high ground. Not
Yeah,
because we want to just sit up here because this is very far out of our range. You don't want to just sit up here spamming from here, but more so because we could use this as a very easy option to escape and then also to engage on them because we can kind of just run off and instantly get behind them, right? And that sort of idea, and get hacked super easily from up there and whatnot. So here that's an option as well. Going left side also wouldn't be too bad of an option. Maybe getting the mega, but that might put us a little bit out of the fight. I'd say high ground would be a good option. That'd be a good option. Really, just placing in your health pack. So setting up here, farming would be kind of what we want to be doing at the moment. But notice how we go for the hack initially. If you're going for farming, in a lot of cases, you don't want to initiate with the hack because
I'm already seeing
it's
this as like that's not. I already know what you're saying. That's not good.
yeah. Yeah. So you just think about kind of what is your objective when engaging, right? Is hack even going to do anything? Are you looking to engage to farm? Are you looking to engage to kill? Are you looking to engage to distract? Right? What is your objective when actually going in and shooting at
See you
them?
later.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like there I'm trying to hold farm because I can see that there's a ton of people there. I'm getting scared, so I'm throwing my beacon out because I know they're right behind me.
Hmm.
And there we go. Yeah. So if my beacon was over on the other side, that
See you
wouldn't have happened
later.
right there.
Hmm.
I would have set up. Is what you're saying now?
Sorry, say that again. If your beacon was
On that health pack or on the high ground, like you just taught me, then I probably wouldn't have died to McCree there.
yeah, which we probably didn't have the time to set it up like that. It was more so like here, for example, we just want to be aware of our McCree. Request healing is another thing we can do here. Make sure you're getting your supports to look at you when you're low. We have invis as an option as well. So invis, request healing, that sort of thing. We didn't really have the time to do a big long rotation to go up to the high ground immediately there. Oh,
Yeah, if I would have taken your advice and thrown it there ahead of time before even trying to get that ult charge, I probably would have been there.
Yeah, well, we had already run into the fight. We were already in that position, from the last fight. So I don't think it's necessarily wrong because we were going for the farming. It's really if you think that you can escape effectively before farming because you don't want to farm and then translocate and then be within range of them being able to kill you. I think that that was a reasonable situation to try to farm. We just maybe didn't execute our escape well enough, right? We didn't get out well enough. So
Yeah.
I think that's fine that you tried to farm there, though.
Beacon in place. I'm out of here.
All right. Wonderful hack. Stops him from getting away, but I see an issue here. Do you maybe say that again?
I got greedy. I chased her and went into 3. This is like I'll probably die here.
Yeah, I think we also didn't. The big thing there is we didn't have translocator active to get out,
Yeah.
so we tried to throw. We ended up throwing it into their team there, thinking that's gonna get us out.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing. I don't think that I think that that was perfectly reasonable to kill her there. We just want to be careful of the McCree because we step within his range. So being careful of McCree here. Then also we don't have Translocator active.
Yep, that happened. Sometimes.
Be right back.
Okay, good. I like that you're up on the high ground there with it.
Hey there.
Okay, good hack of the Ryan. Okay, McCree's getting a bunch of kills. All right.
See, now that's interesting. I'm watching my screen,
Hmm?
and you caught immediately that McCree's getting a bunch of kills. I did not notice that, so
Hmm.
I have that is gonna help me determine the next move or the moves I should do. Like now that
This
you
wasn't
said
your
that, and I
game.
looked at the screen, I was like, oh shit, that means I should probably play more passive because nobody's gonna follow up on EMP. No one's gonna follow up on hacks. I could just maybe farm EMP or if I
Yep.
need to. So that's huge right there for
But
me.
yeah, by this point the fight is lost. 100%
Yeah.
lost fight. And that comes down to kill feed watching, which like you said, we could probably look for a better situation to analyze it where maybe we made a mistake misreading the situation. But yeah, that's definitely a skill that we can discuss.
Yeah, that's something to work on because
Cheers, love.
I think Sombra's a lot about game sense, and if I don't know that the fight's over, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
Ahorita regreso. See you later. Mucho mejor.
Oh, I know. I'm probably. See, I have EMP. I'm like, I remember this one.
Been here all along.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Been here all along.
So here, let's see. So here the issue is that we're not aware of the Reinhardt who's walking back and ends up getting like right up next to us before we even realize. So that gets into audio and also just visual awareness of we know that we killed Reinhardt earlier that fight, so watching respawns, but then also audio awareness of listening and watching for him, right? When it comes to audio awareness, there's a couple different things. Sound settings, I'd recommend everyone has different volumes, so I'd recommend turning up your volume just so you make sure that things are audible and you have it at an appropriate level. Music, I'd recommend turning off or down, as a lot of time that can clutter with audio. And then finally, make sure that you have or check your headset to see if you have surround sound enabled. And if it is not an option for your headset software, then go and enable it in game, Dolby Atmos for headphones. And even if you have all of those enabled, you can still have bad audio awareness if you're not actively listening and paying attention to your surroundings for footsteps, for gunshots, for abilities, for ultimates. And then when we do pay attention to those things, that's actually what's going to lead to us paying attention to Reinhardt here, and then subsequently, hopefully, not dying, right? Because we can translocate away and then boom, we're able to survive, and then that means that we're actually able to do things here.
Okay, yeah, I took a picture of those sound settings, so I'll check them versus mine.
Yep. Okay. Here, let's reanalyze that. Firstly, note once again, before we've done this a couple times, make sure that before you're engaging that you have a translocator to get away with, unless you know that
Yeah,
you're in a very safe position. Here,
yeah,
if we're just going aggro, there's no reason not to just like, place it around this pillar or place it, around the right side corner, something like that. Additionally, what's maybe an issue with this current ranging up against McCree and Reinhardt?
yeah. I can get flashbanged. He's nano. He's gonna kill me in one swipe. There's really no value here. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, more accurately, maybe just back up an extra, 3 to 5 meters. So and McCree is a good example of what we were talking about with ranging. Of McCree, his flashbang range is 10 meters. So if we say your preference range is 10 meters, maybe against the McCree, your preference range now becomes like 12 meters, 13 meters, right? So that you can stay outside of his range of flashbang, and then now you're able to do mostly effective damage, right? But you're now unable to get flashbanged, whereas here we're definitely within that range, so we could get flashed and killed very easily. And then Reinhardt, 100%, especially if he's nanoed, stay out of his range. So here we're just getting too close to these guys, and we just have no reason to. Right? We're letting them do free damage to us, whereas if we just back up, then we don't let them do that.
I'm out of here.
Okay, and then once again we kind of have that
Yeah.
TP.
Oh, you're gonna see a lot of those.
Hmm.
The
Yeah, I
payload
turn around
has
the corner
reached
like, oh
the
shit.
checkpoint.
He vuelto. This is not your time.
Okay, once again, this is kind of a little bit of audio and also visual awareness, right? So we're kind of tunnel visioning a little bit on the Reinhardt here, and we're kind of ignoring the side. So McCree walks up right next to us. We see him shoot at us. When people shoot at you, you get directional cues, so you can hear him shoot, you can see him shoot. You on the right side of your crosshair, you have the damage marker, right? It's red, and shows you the direction in which you're taking damage. You also see that on the corners of your
Oh yeah.
screen. Go ahead.
No, I was like,
Yep.
I forgotten about that little red part on there, but yeah.
Yep. And that'll show directional damage. So we want to watch for that, be aware of it. And then McCree just rolls up right next to us and we're dead, right? Um, a lot. I think so far deaths have been a big issue here. Now I don't think that we are dying insanely frequently. That's not the issue. I know people who die. Like I had conversations about survivability with people who die once a minute. Maybe even over that. And that's where I have the conversation of, okay, you're dying way too frequently, and that's meaning that you're not able to participate at all. Here, the issue is that you're dying in really bad times to be dying, and they're very easily preventable deaths, and that's the main issues. So let's firstly, like the past point, right? We can just for example, right? Let's just say the past point, right? We potentially on every single point, right? You have the potential for 2 fights on each point at a very minimum, right? If they stagger you guys, then it's less than 2 full team fights. If you guys win fights, then it's more than 2 full team fights. But the first fight, the first fight will happen up around this corner, right? The second fight will happen around this ending period, right?
Yeah,
2 fights per point on a payload map,
makes
roughly
sense.
speaking.
Yeah.
How many fights did we participate in on not our team, you participate in when on that second point?
I don't think any.
Yeah, 0. And
Yeah.
that comes down to the fact that we pretty much ended up dying both times, or I guess dying the first time, right? And then we ended up dying like right here, so we're not able to even participate. We're the first dead in this fight. Note that there's a difference between dying like first, second, third versus dying fourth, fifth, sixth in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, because
Yeah.
when you're dying 1, 2, 3, that's more so the cause of the lost fight because you're negatively impacting your team. That's your impact on losing the fight.
Right.
Versus if you're dying fourth, fifth, or sixth, in some cases that might mean that you've already lost the fight and might even be good to die in those instances.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah. So also these deaths are a lot of them are very easily preventable. Not every death will be easily preventable. But about 80% for the current moment, you'll probably be able to fix something about, and a lot of these are like big things that we can fix.
I wanted to send you
Mm,
this game too because it's not my best game and I knew I made mistakes,
mm,
but it's also not the worst game I've ever played. But you know what I
mm.
mean? Like, there's a lot of game. I wouldn't say I die this frequently all the time,
Mm,
but I
yep.
knew I wasn't on my A game in this one, so
Yeah.
and I feel like you're definitely catching that, so that's good.
For future reference, note the
Yeah,
games we play averagely are the best, not necessarily games we play below averagely, because then that means that I'm catching mistakes that you make on a very frequent, regular basis,
yeah,
versus
like
mistakes.
average. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
my
Hmm.
right.
Right. So yeah. So also, when you do die, note there's kind of four main causes of deaths. Usually, there is a misuse of abilities, there is poor positioning, a
You,
lack of awareness, and overaggression. Those are the four main ones. You can also maybe add in another tiny one, which is movement. Sometimes can add to deaths. Right.
what's the
Um.
last one? The first one?
Say that again.
What was the first one?
First one was a misuse of abilities, right? So such as us not having translocator placed and running into their team, right? Or
Oh, yeah,
something
go
like
ahead and
that.
do all of these. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What would you say maybe looks to be the primary reason why we're dying? Now, I think there's a couple things impacting it, but I'd say there's one that seems to have been the primary cause in the last two at least.
Yeah, I like that you're asking me these questions because that's going to help me
Mm,
learn that way.
mm.
I feel like it's the game sense of like the tunnel visioning in the game
Yep.
sense, not allowing me to know that I shouldn't
Yeah.
be in this location.
The lack of awareness, right?
Yeah, lack of awareness.
Mm,
Yeah.
knowing, not being aware of our surroundings, and then therefore McCree rolls up on top of us and we die, right? That's
Yep.
definitely 100%. I would agree. And then that's one that if we do see McCree, then we're able to get out and stay alive and actually participate. This means as well that since we've died two fights in a row, we're unable to use EMP in those fights, which is also a lack of value. We're being forced to hold on to it when maybe we want to be getting it out there doing things.
Always leave yourself a back door.
Right. Okay, we're coming into this fight. Let's analyze it real quick. Probably wanted to like TP over that and EMP faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Same thing we talked about earlier. Ults that are not used don't get value, and not. I wouldn't say that we've held on to it throughout a full fight. We died, so we're kind of forced to hold on to it. But here, this does look more like we're holding on to it. I'm not sure if we do use it here, but do note that ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. So let me
Yes.
elaborate. Let's say we have EMP, they have EMP, right? We come into a fight, they EMP first. Okay, your whole team's hacked and they come in and they kill two, three of you. Okay, so now you EMP, and they're all hacked. You get the same number of people, but now you have less. You're already at a disadvantage. You have less people to shoot into them. You have less. You've already down all the tanking, the healing, the damage. And then additionally, when you get EMP, they could even just end up winning the fight right off of that, or they could end up killing you, and now you're not even able to use EMP, right? So just generally speaking, ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second. But you also just when do you want to use it? You want to use it at the start of fights, right? Start of
Yeah.
fights is usually the best time to use ultimates. Mid fight is okay.
That was Sombra too.
Say that again.
With Sombra, you agree with that? I mean, obviously,
Yep.
the other things that you said are like you said, like if you kill one, or two, then yeah, you're gonna win that fight. So the old cycle first. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, so like it's yeah, and one to two is not necessarily a one fight. We can get into that when we go over how to tell whether or not you won or lost the fight. But yeah, ulting first, and ulting at the start of fight usually is going to be the best. Mid fight is okay, it's acceptable. It's going to be good in a lot of situations. But also it kind of depends. Late fight is situational, and then in between fights is very rare. Very rarely will you want to ult in between fights, and also be careful about ulting like too early at the start of the fight. So it's like it's kind of the balance between that.
Yeah.
So here we come in, know that we don't have a translocator to escape with, right? We don't really have that get out of jail free card. We're not EMPing at the moment. We're in a little bit of a dangerous situation, right? Possibly could have been if they were looking at us faster there. We probably could have died in that meantime. So be careful of that.
Damn
And
it.
then they do end up hacking us. Keep your eye out for those stuns and whatnot.
Yeah, here
Um,
it comes.
So be very careful and aware, right? Team comp dictates playstyle. We play differently against every single team comp that we go up against. Sombra, we have to be aware when they're on Sombra. We have to be aware because she can completely shut down our abilities. That's something, I guess, unless you're talking about stuns, right? That's something that's unique to Sombra, and therefore be aware of that and watch for it because she can just stop you from being able to escape. So if she starts to hack on you, either you need to be shooting at her, translocating away, or getting around the corner that can break it. And you just need to be very aware of it so you can look to dodge it. Whereas here, she just ends up getting it off, and then we end up dying as a result, I think, or I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, even rewatching, I'm like, what was I thinking there? Like, why did I throw over and just get into that? I thought I was gonna EMP, but then I didn't. So
Yep. Okay. Probably could be hacking Reiner here. Okay. Probably could be hacking these guys once again. Okay, very nice.
Back off.
Good,
yeah.
good translocator out.
My ultimate is ready. Much better.
So do note now that so we did hold on to our ultimate in that
My
last
ultimate
fight
is
a little bit
ready.
more.
Here I am.
Nice hack.
Oh, you're very simple.
Good kills. All right.
Translocate.
Now that fight ended really, really fast. So and you did win pretty much instantly. So I would not blame you too heavily
I'm outta
for
here.
not using MP there, right? Just because you won it so incredibly soon.
Much
So that
better.
Sombra over there, I mean, that really matters. But so I called her out because I found her there with her translocator. I didn't want to die fighting her. She's on the translocator. I know that's not a good fight for
Yep.
me. So I called it out, and then my team addressed it, and we actually got her there. So that was kind of cool.
Yep. Good idea. All right, EMP. There you go. Wonderful EMP. Lots of people. Could we get the Baptiste ult in it as well? Let's see if there's anything maybe we could do better. Possibly.
Apagando las luces.
I think that's mostly fine. Yeah, we have a translocator over there. Yeah, I think that's mostly fine here. Just maybe a little bit like inside of them, possibly something here we could do instead. Because here, note that we drop from high ground. Typically, if possible, you want to EMP. For example, here, right? You could let them come in a little bit further, which will allow your team to actually punish them a little bit more because they're a little bit far away. So that might actually lead to your team not being able to follow up appropriately here if
Yeah,
they're
definitely.
really far away from your team.
And your team's
Um,
so much better.
yeah, so drawing them in further, right, being aware of where's your team versus where's the enemy team can help out here. Because if you let them come in a little bit further, then we could even just like EMP up here in the high ground and stay on high ground, or we could jump off of high ground here and then be midair while we're doing it, which can reduce like how it can keep us in the fight longer because we're harder to hit. We're not
Right.
we're not kind of like slowly walking along on the ground as we're EMPing. So a couple efficiencies there we could do. Overall, good ultimate. That's probably going to lead to hopefully fight win. Okay.
I'm on fire. You have
Uh-oh. So that's audio awareness right there once again. So another awareness problem because if we hear them, then all we have to do is just run around that corner and we're good.
taste.
So audio awareness, paying attention to our surroundings, and then that can lead to a
You're talking
stun
about
fight.
the high noon, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Your
Beacon in
support has
place.
arrived.
So let's discuss applications because awareness in general, right, might seem like a little bit of a vague concept, right? Like, yeah, I'm saying it, but how do I actually get better at looking and hearing?
Question. That's a great question.
Yeah. So let's elaborate on that. So you work on awareness in the exact same way that you should be working on pretty much anything else that you're trying to work on, and that is that while you are playing, you want to make sure that you're actively focusing on the thing you're trying to work on. So what that means is that you're not going to be autopiloting. You're not going to just play to play, or contrary to popular belief, you're not going to purely play to win, but you're going to play to improve because just playing to win just can lead to stagnation, whereas playing to improve actually leads to more wins. Now, what that actually looks like within your gameplay is that while you're playing, you're going to be saying to yourself, awareness, 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 listen, 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 right? And when you're giving yourself a constant stream of reminders to pay attention to what's going on around you, well, then you're probably going to pay attention a little bit more because you're reminding yourself to do it. And then once you start looking around and listening a bit more, that's going to be increased awareness because really that's all that awareness is it's looking and listening. And when you're thinking and about looking and listening, you're going to look and listen. So your awareness will be better. Once you do that for a long enough period of time, that forms it as a positive habit. Now, once it's a positive habit, you don't really need to work on it nearly as much because it just comes naturally now. It's not something you need to think about as heavily. And then you can look to work on something else too that you need to work on. Now, I would recommend don't try to do everything all at once because we've talked about like 20
Totally.
different things.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll
mhm,
focus on one thing at a time until
mhm.
I feel like I really got it before I can move on. I'm
Yep.
not a very good multitasker, so yeah.
Yeah. One so I'd recommend like one category, which we'll go over later,
Mhm.
or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category would be my recommendation. Now we are coming up, I guess, near the end, and I want to discuss um just how to tell whether or not you won or lost a fight, but we haven't come across a situation for it as of yet. So would you like to review that?
Yeah, definitely. Let's yeah, anything that you think are going to
Mhm.
be the pinnacles of
Yep.
understanding the game better to win.
Yeah, sure. And then just real quickly, just to make sure that the whole concept that we just discussed, that you're tracking with that makes sense, yeah.
Say that part again.
Yeah, so just the how to apply, did that all make sense? Did you have any questions on
Yes.
that?
Yeah, so my thought was is
Mhm.
don't play on autopilot because I do that and I get tunnel
Mm.
vision. And so play my games with the intention of increasing my awareness and
Yes.
just
Mhm.
tell yourself awareness, awareness, awareness. So that
Mhm.
way, you're opening your eyes up and you're making a conscious decision to do something instead
Mhm.
of just, your brain's just shut and you're
Mhm.
just getting what you're seeing.
Yes, and that because awareness seems to be linked to survivability in this case, that will also increase your effectiveness in being alive during more fights and your ability to participate more often.
Looking for
Oh,
me?
so let's see. I'm trying to think here if we are able to find a fight where we do something
See you
wrong
later.
with with it, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to find a situation like that. So, um, why don't we just comment on it? Maybe here. Let's see. Let's see what happens.
Okay. I think I know what you're gonna
Gotcha.
bring up, and I see this a lot with my teammates or in the lower ranks,
Mm,
which by the way, this is silver, high silver.
yeah.
I just feel like I can't carry.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, if I was participating in two of those fights, I could have had a better
30
chance.
Yep.
seconds remaining.
Carrying
Looking
is
for me?
playing to such a high level that you are able to get kills effectively, consistently without dying. Just to so essentially, if you play better, like carrying kind of seems like kind of this mystical, like how do you actually do carrying? And carrying is essentially just playing so good, playing better so that you're able to do the job of like 2 to 3 people, right? Like that's the idea, the concept behind it. So everything we're talking about here is essentially steps to being able to carry. So let's
Not too far
just
off topic on that. I
mm,
just wanted to know what's your opinion on trying to climb as a Sombra.
the
'Cause I feel
thing.
like I'm kind of
mm,
stacking the deck against me a little bit.
Sure. I think that when you're one trick, I'm not sure if you're one trick, but if you're playing just a particular character in a lot of situations where maybe they're not fantastic, you are going to face a handicap. Now,
Yeah,
does a handicap mean that you're unable to climb? No, it just might take a little bit longer with more effort than the alternative. So it's not impossible. It just might take longer because you're needing to learn how to play your character up against situations where your character's not good, but
yeah.
that's perfectly fine, and that's kind of that might be what we could discuss in coaching sessions and whatnot. So I think that it's not definitely not impossible to climb on Sombra, and especially if you're dealing with such a low rank. Honestly, character picks aren't even going to be a really massive deal until you start to climb up to really high levels where metas actually have an impact.
That's why I'm thinking it's my fault. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be something I'm doing.
Yeah.
It can't just be the character itself. I know
100%.
she's more difficult than some others, but I have the most fun playing her,
Mhm.
so it gives me the most incentive to grind through those
Mhm.
lessons that I need to learn. So okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Because if you took like I think you said you watched like a Sombra streamer, right? Libs, I think you
Yeah,
said, yeah,
lip,
like
LIP,
lib, yeah, like if you
lip,
took lib, say lip, oh lip, okay,
yeah, lip, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you took him and put him in your silver game,
He would win.
yeah, he'd probably win like all of them, right?
That's what I tell
Um,
people when they
mhm,
start arguing and blaming each other. I'm like, listen,
yeah.
stop blaming your teammates. If you were top 500, you'd win. You would win. So
Yep,
yeah,
pretty much
Cover
exactly.
me.
All right, so how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight? Primarily, this comes down to watching kill feed, as kill feed is going to tell you when you're up or down people. Now, this is the basics; it can get more advanced, but the basics is going to be that when you are up or down 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage. And I would make sure that you note the numbers here, because I notice a lot of times when I do coaching and do follow-up sessions, people forget the numbers. They'll just say, "Oh yeah, it's something to do with kill feed," right? So it's
Oh.
1 to 2 is advantage or disadvantage, and you play more passive or more aggressive in that situation. 2 to 3 is a one fight or a lost fight, in which case you either play extra aggressive in a one fight, or if you lost the fight, you get out if possible. In a lot of cases, a Sombra, you'll be able to get out. But if you
Yeah.
cannot get out, you want to let them kill you. That way you don't stagger yourself. And then, besides that, you don't use ultimates in won or lost fights. So a lot of times this can lead, if players aren't understanding this properly, you could end up staggering very easily, or you might end up using an ultimate when you're not supposed to, or you just might not be properly adjusting your aggression for the situation, where you're playing super passive when you're up a ton of people, or you're playing incredibly aggressive when you're, down 3 people, right? Those sorts of situations.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great tip. I really like that.
Yep. Any questions there?
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. If I'm
Mm,
paying attention to kill feed, which is part of my awareness, and I
Yep.
see 1 to 2 people die on their team, that's an advantage for us. Or if it's the other
Mhm.
way around, it's a disadvantage. I should play more passive. If it's 2 to 3, then either get out or can play really aggressive.
Yep. 100%.
See you later.
Okay. Request healing. This is just gonna get your supports to look at you sooner, get you up higher health. That way they actually know where you're at.
10 seconds.
Here I am.
Very nice. Good kills. All right. Good round.
Yeah, that's cool. Like just even like right now, just watching the game, I'm
He
already starting to think about like the kill feed thing and the awareness. I'm like,
Beacon
oh yeah, that's
ready.
gonna make a difference. I can see it.
Yep.
He vuelto.
Okay. So that's unfortunate, because I think what happens there is we drag from left to right there. So it starts on the Baptiste when we're
Oh yeah,
attempting to go for the Sigma. So
Sigma. Yeah,
yeah. So in that situation, possibly if you're trying to be more accurate, don't hold it down when you're turning the corner. But press it once you're actually looking at Sigma, right? So that might be something. That's not always bad to hold it down, but there, note that that's what actually happens is we drag from left to right, and because we're holding it down, it ends up going to the BAP.
Much better.
my idea here is I know that this high ground is a good position, and I know that they're up there, so I want to start applying pressure to get them off of there
Sure.
because I know that that's good for them.
Looking
Yeah.
for me?
Very nice kill.
Lo siento.
Yep, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Don't worry about it if it's not participating in the fight whatsoever. That's not helping anybody in that situation. So
Right.
it's just a little bit of waste of time. All right.
Yeah.
We are going to hop out here, and we're going
Sure.
to go over the main points of the session, do a
That's
quick
great.
review, and then wrap up from there.
Yeah. I got to tell you, so far your coaching's been really good. Like I can see why you have all the great reviews. You have
Yeah.
a good understanding of how to actually coach, not just be a good player.
Everything
Well,
can
I'm
be
glad to
hacked.
hear it, man.
And
That's much
everyone.
appreciated for the compliment.
Looking for me?
All right. So ability usage. Let's start there. When I don't think we talked like a ton about hack. Right. Make sure you're just not like if we're trying to hit this person, don't drag it this way while holding it down. Right. That's just
Right.
gonna hack this person.
Oh,
Besides that, I think that you have
pobrecito.
good targets in mind when you're hacking. You definitely have the experience there. You know, okay, usually you want to hack people with abilities, and tanks are really gonna be good and whatnot, right? Make sure we're just maybe also not, if we're coming into a fight where we're trying to farm, hacking might not even be necessary. Besides that, invis, not really many problems. Translocator seems to be the main one here. Make sure
Yeah. Not
that
having
we're, yeah, make sure that you have it down before you're engaging, because sometimes we'll have it on cooldown and will walk in before placing it, right? Make sure we're looking to just place it in. Typically, when you're placing translocator, we didn't really go in depth on this at all, but you're looking for kind of like you're looking for a couple different factors. You want speed because you want to get out and then be back in the fight as soon as possible. You
Yeah.
want safety. You want to get out and be actually in a safe position, not die instantly. You want easy access to healing, because a lot of cases when you get out, you're going to be low HP and you need to get healed up. So that could mean on a health pack, or it could also mean near your team so that you can get healed up by your supports, right?
Yeah.
And then high grounds can be bonuses. That's a lot of time going to be very safe, be very fast, right? So just think through some of those when you're placing those. Yeah, and then just make sure you're using them to get back in escape and whatnot. Overall, though, probably like maybe like a higher end of a low to medium priority for you to work on. Moving on to your ultimate usage, really, we didn't see a ton of those, and that was largely due to your survivability just affecting that a lot. But then when you did use your ultimate, it seemed to be pretty solid. You got a lot of people in them. Make sure that you have a translocator as an option to get out when you're using it. Jumping off from a high ground covers more range. You can get people, like for example, if somebody's around that, if I'm standing here, there's a wall blocking it, but if I'm above, then it grabs everybody, right?
Yeah.
It makes me more survivable while I'm dropping from midair. Means I'm not going to get stunned as easily, etc. Double hack people, because that extends the duration of when they're hacked for when you EMP them.
Reinhardt.
Say that again.
I love to do that on Reinhardt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Overall, just because I didn't see him a ton, low to medium, right? Like I didn't really see a lot of that in your gameplay. Maybe that can come up in future sessions or whatnot.
Yeah.
Mechanics. Let's see. Did we talk a ton about mechanics? I'm actually not thinking that we did discuss a lot within the mechanics category. Your general tracking seemed very good. I think it was more of the supportive stuff that went into mechanics, because you can have the best name in the world and die 24/7, or not be in a good position and not be able to do anything with your mechanics. Yeah, reload habits fine. Yeah, honestly, mechanics we did not discuss a ton about. Maybe there's like, and do note that when categories are low, it's not in the future they might resurface, because as you climb an SR, you're going to the standard's going to be higher. You're going to have people punishing you for more mistakes and whatnot. You're going to have more advanced tips and whatnot to go over. So something that's low this session, if you go up, 300 SR, it could be a high, or medium high next time. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, here I'd probably put it at a low priority for you to work on. We didn't really discuss it a ton. Moving on, positioning. Make sure you are using cover. You're trying to stay alive as long as possible. So when you're engaging, look to stay near cover and whatnot. Take, high grounds are great, but know when to not be on them, right? So when you're out of range, especially, is going to be one of the times where you probably want to be getting a little bit closer. Preference range is probably one of the bigger ones here in positioning. Right, 10 meters is kind of like your preference. Stay a little bit further if they are close range characters, right?
Yeah. Like
And then yeah, exactly. And then 20 meters is probably like your cap off, but it's not necessarily your preference. And you definitely don't want to be like, doing stuff from back here if there's no reason to. And then overall, probably around like a medium or so priority for you to work on. And then finally, we have awareness / survivability. I don't always combine those two, but they seem to be very much linked here. So I'm combining the two categories into one. So as you work on your awareness, your survivability will probably increase a ton. Just if you're paying attention to your environment more, right? Pay attention to your health bar, request healing when you're low. Pay attention to your abilities, make sure you're not running in without translocator up, right? Pay attention to what is my team up to, what is the enemy team up to, right? Like let them come in a little bit further for your ult and whatnot. Pay attention to kill feed, right? We just discussed all that.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, we just discussed that a couple minutes ago. So just 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Advantage, disadvantage, won or lost fight. Pay attention to how teams dictate your team compositions, dictate your playstyle, right? Watch for that Sombra hack so that she's not getting you and just killing you because you can't escape. Keep your ears open. That was probably one of the bigger ones when it came to deaths, right? We just ended up not being audibly aware, but then you can also compensate for that as well by being visually aware. All right, pay attention to to where damage is coming from. Glance around. Don't just kind of walk around doing slow pans. You want to make sure you're doing 360s and looking left and right and checking corners and just make sure you're being actively aware of your surroundings, right? And that's going to keep you alive and whatnot and allow you to be more effective in your gameplay, because we ended up being dead a lot of the time when the fight was happening, and then that meant that we weren't able to have an impact during the fight and not use our ultimate and etc. Overall, probably like a medium high priority for you to work on. So to put that all in order, Number one, obviously, was that, right? Awareness slash survivability. 2 is probably positioning. 3 is going to be probably your ability usage. 4 being your ultimate usage. And then mechanics not being a category for the moment that you really need to be worrying about. Do you have any questions?
It was awareness is the first one, positioning, then what, survivability? Oh no, you said ability usage. Okay,
Yep.
got it. I'm writing it down.
Yep. And then ultimate usage, final one.
Double kill.
Yeah, and then one last question. I noticed that you have like some really good principles. I don't know if there's something that you came up with, or I didn't really ask much about you and your experience, which is fine. But like you've said a lot of things that are kind of like good rules to follow. Like for instance, the 1 to 2 thing was good. Some other stuff like that. Where did you learn that? Did you come up with that on your own, or?
It's honestly at this point it might be it might be a very nuanced topic to answer because I've played this game for a long while with a lot of experience. Like I have 4,000 hours, like over 4,000 hours in gameplay experience. So this is everything that you're hearing, I would say primarily comes from just my own experience of the game and learning myself, self improvement.
Yeah.
As I just for example. I started playing the game and I placed in season 3 and I placed in silver and I climbed to 4400 and I did not get any coaching until after I had already hit my peak.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's mostly self-improvement, and so the self-improvement process is just looking at my gameplay, thinking, what did I do wrong? What what did I do wrong? What was maybe the issue within the issue? What is the solution to that issue? And then how can I look to apply that? And that's just a basic formula for improvement, right? So like deaths are wrong, right? Deaths are bad. Okay, so that's the problem. The issue within the problem is why did I die? Then looking for the solution, which is usually the opposite of it, right? So if I died because I wasn't paying attention, the solution is paying attention, and then finally looking to apply that to my gameplay, right? That's how I coach as well. Then besides that, there's also have a lot of experience, right? I learned from YouTube videos here and there, and a lot of mimicking and listening and watching what I saw other good players doing. So
Yeah.
that's like I never, for example, I coach tank to a very effective level, but I'd never played tank a ton to a very high level. But I learned a lot about how to coach and teach tank because of how I watched and analyzed other high level tank players, and because I was on teams with them and things like, and just in ranked and whatnot, right? I'm watching
So
top
cool.
500 tank players and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Double kill.
Oh, that's awesome. I can see how you can, they say you surround yourself with the people like you want to become, so and then
Yes.
you can learn from them. So that makes perfect sense.
Yep, and then even things like just as you're ranking up, even at silver, be very very careful about this at silver because
Yeah.
you never know when it's a good thing or when it's a bad thing. But if you see something that seems to be working for other people effectively, then look
Yeah.
to copy it, right? Like if you see
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of part of it as well. Now, like I said, that sometimes that's not the best idea at silver because there's a lot of things that they might do that seems to be working when really it's a bad idea. But that's part of it is just like you can look to emulate what you see works, and then that leads to more. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay. I know what
any
you're
other
saying.
any other questions?
Oh yeah, just what's next? So what do we do from here?
All right, so I'm going to stop.